I read to you about a man by the name of Naaman. He was a famous and honorable man, valiant in war. He even had been blessed of God, for God had given him deliverance for his country Syria over their enemies. However, one day he's cut off from the stream of life. Leprosy attacks his body. There was a little maid who had been captured by the general himself. And she went in to his wife and said, "Would God, my Lord Naaman were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he will pray for him, and God will heal his leprosy." Well, immediately he wanted to get back in the stream of life. He wanted to find health again, because he's being cut down, and that immediately. But then, at that moment, he begins to throw up blocks and hindrances in his own mind. It was quite easy for the little maid to convince him of the reality of healing, or the reality of God, or the integrity of the prophet Elisha. That was no problem. The problem began when the man believed that it was possible, because then he made up his own mind and his own way, and said, now it'll happen just exactly this way. And he had it all figured out. What did he do? He was told to go for prayer to the prophet Elisha. So he gathered his staff, and they brought him several chariots. He dressed in the finest uniform of the army and filled his chariots with many changes of clothes, much silver and gold, many rare gifts of many kinds. And in his pride and vanity, he made a trip. And when he came up to the house of Elisha, it was like a visiting king, a man of such high honor that people must come out and accord him a 21-gun salute. And to his surprise, a little thing was going on inside the prophet's house. The Lord said to Elisha, now here he comes. Now I want you to look at him. Look at that staff that's with him. Look at all the chariots. And he has many gifts and much gold and silver for you. Now, Elisha, I tell you what you'll have to do for this man to get healed. You're going to have to do something to shock him and to break his pride. For I heal only those who are humble and of a contrite heart. This is a fine man, a great man, but he's a man. He's no better than any other man on earth. You're not to bow to him. Now you tell him to do what I say. And so the prophet Elisha said to his servant, now you go out to the general and you say to him, you go down and wash 7 times in the river Jordan and your flesh shall be healed. Now, you realize what this means? Elisha is not going out in person. He's sending a hired hand, you might say. The servant delivers the message, and immediately the general was affronted and had the wrong understanding. He said, water? Go wash in the river Jordan 7 times? Oh, so I'll be healed by water. So that's the way God heals. He heals by water. This is what went through his mind. Then he said, well, if it's by water, I will return to Damascus where the waters are pure. The rivers of Abana and Pharpar have crystal clear water. And as you know, the river Jordan is a stinking river. And Naaman, all he could see and think about, look at my uniform. I'll soil my clothes. I will degrade my reputation. If it's water, I'll go back where the water is clean. But God was not healing him with water. He didn't understand. And this is our trouble. We don't understand. We don't read the Bible like we should. We're not close enough to God to see the way God works. I talk about the laying on of hands. And there are people who really believe, I can heal by my hands. I cannot heal by my hands. The river Jordan could not heal the man's leprosy. That was the farthest from the mind of Elisha. The thing that Elisha had in mind was to break his pride, to bend those knees, to humble his spirit. Now, many people who need help desperately cannot receive it because they're proud. They will not humble themselves. It'll be done a certain way, or it won't be done, and God will never do it. Never in all your life. You will do it God's way, or it will not be done. Naaman said, if it's water, I'll return home where the water is clean. But when he turned away in a rage, just as mad as he could be, and brother, sister, when you get your pride wounded, you're really mad. You let someone suggest that you are of such and such a caliber or such and such a position, and that's the wrong thing to suggest. You can take anything except an offense to your pride. And he turned away in a rage, and his servants came to him, men who loved him and who had listened to this entire conversation. They said to him, General, if the prophet had urged you to do some great thing, General, pardon me for living, but you know you would have done it. And that hit home, and it hits home to all of us, because probably the vast majority of all of us here tonight would be willing to do some great thing. And when the prophet told him to go dip 7 times, the servants relayed the message in terms that it's right, it's proper. They knew the man, how proud he was, and the general stopped his team of horses, for he was going away. He was returning to Damascus, and he was returning a dead man. Hear me tonight. God knows the way to heal you. He has the answer to your problem. He has the only salvation. For there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved except the name of Jesus. If you go away, where will you go? What will you do? Who will solve your problem? What will happen to you if you go away? Now, he said, how much better is it for you to do a small thing, and it's a little thing to go down and wash 7 times in the river Jordan? And how much better is it if you obey God? So then, the man stopped his team of horses. He turned around and he said, you're right, and I'm wrong. I've often wondered how God felt when a man says that. You're right, and I'm wrong. You know, that's what saves a home from getting a divorce. When one of them who's so mad says, you're right, and I'm wrong. And Naaman just stopped and said, I'm wrong, God, and you're right. I'll do it. This is when faith starts. This is when faith gets big. This is when it flexes its muscles and stands up and shakes itself and walks out on the arena and says, come on, let's go. And so faith got hold of his chariot and drove it down to the river Jordan. And faith got hold of his hand and led him down to the river's edge. And faith said, jump in, Naaman, and he leaped in, uniform and all. And faith brought him out and shoved him in again, and faith brought him out and shoved him in the 3rd time, and the 4th, and the 5th, and the 6th, and the 7th, and by that time the general was saying, 100 times, Lord, if you wanted, 100 times. And when he had dipped the 7th time, the number 7 in the Bible is the perfect number. That meant that he had completely humbled himself and given himself over to God's way. And when he walked out of the water the 7th time, there was a tremendous transformation in his flesh. He brushed the water out of his eyes. He felt a tingling all over his body. He looked at his hands, and his servants came up and took his hands, and there they looked at it. They rolled up his sleeve. They pulled back his garment and looked at his chest. They pinched the flesh. And this is what they said. General, your flesh has come again like the flesh of a little child. Not only was the putrefaction healed, but the restored flesh was like the flesh of a little child. And the general walked away, and he was saying, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God, thank God. That's all you can say is thank God. How can you explain a thing like that? When God does it for you, when God does something, it's so wonderful, it's like you never knew it before. First a trickle, then a stream, then a flood of power flows into your heart.